Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, and what's the key to happiness? Well, we really could talk about that all day. I'm sure most of you would be over the moon if your bills were paid by a mystery donor. That's, I suppose, one way to happiness. But some say the answer to true happiness comes more from within. Let's hear the view of a personal development trainer and a philosopher.
The rising cost of everyday living has forced consumers here to batten down the hatches.
Trouble in mind, I'm blue, but I won't be blue always, 'cause the sun's gonna shine in my back door someday.
It seems all we hear these days is bad news. Our daily diet of economic gloom and rainy weather has left us more depressed than ever. Happy, carefree days for many of us are a distant memory. But one personal development trainer has good news. We all have the ability to be cheerful.
We were taught when we were young either to be happy or not. What most people don't realize is the way you respond to external stimulus, whether you are happy in situations or not happy in situations, whether you're good at change or not good at change, whether you feel threatened by strangers or not threatened by strangers. All of this we are entrained as children from, not even from birth, from before birth, because from conception for the first 9 months we literally are fed by our mom's chemical soup. Peace comes from within. It is not dependent on people or places or things. It's something that you will find inside yourself, not out there. And that's part of the intrinsic problem. So that's the kind of stuff that we teach. How to bring balance back into people's lives.
However, the philosophers amongst us disagree.
I think it's always nice to try and encourage people to be as happy as they can be. But I think giving them mantras and things to exercises to make them feel happy is just selling them false consciousness. I think all we can do to be happy is to exercise as fully as possible all our capacities to their full extent. That just means being with the people we want to be with, doing the things we want to do, and at times that will involve confronting negative or disturbing situations. Going into situations with a predisposed disposition to be positive about everything won't necessarily be very helpful.
Well, look at these two happy souls sitting beside me. Joanna, David, do you agree that some people are possibly born happy, others are born unhappy?
Well, I think science has already proved that 50% of your genetic makeup decides whether you're going to be happy or not. I think in Northern Ireland, you know, there's a very specific thing here. People are very suspicious of you if you're too happy. They think that you're either on drugs or in a cult or possibly both if you appear to be too happy.
There's nothing harder to stick to than a perpetually happy person. I mean, they're really hard to put up with.
That's it. I think people revel in their misery.
I am sceptical of all of this sort of thing, you know. I mean, who wants to be happy all the time? How, you know,
such misery.
How do you
to
appreciate happiness if you have never been miserable? I mean, this weekend, for example, I got the perfect tonic for happiness, and that was Liverpool beating Chelsea.
Always bring it down to football. Who could I refer to these two as
the room who lights the room up and makes everybody else feel happy because they simply exude an atmosphere of care and love.
Talking about me like that.
You can only stick them for about 10 minutes and then it'll start to grate with you, you know.
Right, to think that I refer to these two as little rays of sunshine. Got that wrong, didn't I? Rod,
yeah.
We seen you there on the tape telling us that we need people like you to tell us we're happy.
No, not people like me. Let's take a step back. People get the wrong idea of being happy. The thing that I call motivation a l'Americaine, look in the mirror and see a winner, that's not what I'm talking about, because being positive all the while doesn't work. It can't work, simply because we don't live in a positive world. As one of your panel just said, you need a bit of unhappiness every now and then anyway. And that's why I said in the insert that what we teach is not that. It's let's get back to balance. The balance between both sides, because we live in a dualistic universe. You can't just have light. You need dark to make the shade. You can't have a magnet with one pole. So the dynamism of both those poles when they come together is where we find ourselves living. But the problem is we get entrained into being negative, and it sort of spirals, and we forget that there are other sides, and it's that balance point that we need to get back to.
Sonia, there is a very serious issue to all of this. Your late husband was a motivational speaker. Did his approach to life help you in some way to deal with his death?
Yeah, I guess I learned a lot from Bill over the 15 years that we were together. I learned that life is like a piece of cake, and that there are various segments in that life, to my life, and one segment has gone, he's died, but all the other segments are still there, and many of those segments have been enriched. So I feel that he taught me that very, very well. He also taught me to appreciate all the things that I have and to live in the present moment, and those things are very important. However, I think happiness is a skill, and it's for that reason that I've invited Rod Briggs to the next Northern Ireland Complementary Therapies Fair at the Ramada Hotel on the 9th of November to explore this topic of happiness, because I think it's something that interests us all and that we need to learn more about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
We need to recognise it. When we are happy, we need to be able to understand that we're happy. That's important.
Okay, well, thank you for that. More on personal happiness and, of course, your comments after the break. Hello again, you're watching Late and Live. We're talking happiness therapies. More on that in just a moment after your latest comments. Sarah has the details.
Thanks, Mark. Well, your texts and emails just keep coming in. Gary from Enniskillen, he says, live for today. Who knows what tomorrow might bring you? Paul McGuire in Antrim, he says, unhappiness rather, is inflicted by others, and it can be easily avoided if you, as the individual, simply refuse to be unhappy. And finally, Melanie in Belfast, whatever I'm happy and bubbly, people always ask me, can I have whatever you're on? Mark.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Michael, do you think all this type of thing that we're discussing, these alternative happiness therapies, is this just a fad for people who are bored?
No, I don't think it is. I actually agree with quite a lot of it, and I applaud Sonia and your late husband Bill and Rod for what they're trying to do. I think anybody who tries to promote happiness is doing very well, especially in the economic climate that we have. I mean, I would like to think of myself as a pretty cheerful soul, and I think what works for one person is not going to necessarily work for another. I can see his face already, just getting so ready to go at me. But I think that the most important thing is be grateful for what you have. I mean, that's what I always sort of do myself. And I would pray every night, and the first thing I would do is actually give thanks. And I would say, thanks for my family, for my parents, or whatever. And I think those things, it actually makes you realise what you've got. So, focus on that and don't focus on the stuff that you haven't got.
Terry McGuire, I want to bring you in there. Do you think alternative medicine is a money-making machine?
It's a massive money-making machine. It's a multi-billion-pound industry, and it rather concerns me that we're talking about the word happiness. In actual fact, these people are making the money on the sadness, and I'm very, very concerned that we're medicalising in some way, that because we have ups and downs in life, the downs have to be in some way treated. Now, we talked about some of the cognitive therapies in your presentation, but there is a whole range of these therapies, and some of them are quite bizarre in a way. And there's been an attempt over the last 10 to 15 years to look at these, to try and make some sense of them and ask the question, do they work in the first hand? And secondly, are they safe? And there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that things like homeopathy or Bach's flower works. And I'm saying that very cognizant of the fact that someone will come back and say they have a small study that shows this and this. The scientists that have looked at this, and there's quite a number of them now internationally, and they've come back and it's been published, it doesn't work.
Colin, you have your hand up there. You're a homeopath and acupuncturist. What do you think of what Terry's had to say here?
I think it's a very skewed view of the reality. The reality, for instance, I mean, this man's talking about experimental studies, the designs of which and the statistical analyses of which are extremely skewed and extremely manipulative. Very often done by taking the various therapies out of context and in a debased form and then comparing it to something else, also in terms of randomised controls. I would be very suspicious of some of the randomisation.
And Carla, just sitting beside Colin there, what side of the fence are you on? Do you agree with Terry or Colin?
Horses for courses. I'm a counsellor, psychotherapist, I see a lot of different people who are searching, who quite often just want someone to listen to them. I get some people saying, I go to my GP and all they do is prescribe me pills. I've had mental health issues, depression for a long time. I've been finally referred to the psychiatrist who has about 2.5 minutes and he just checks my medication and sends me on my way. And then I have other people who come in and they say, I've been to hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, I've been to holistic, I've been acupunctured, I've had ear candles, I've had all of this, and I'm still very, very unhappy. What everybody, I think, is missing is the impact that every single person in this room can have on the happiness of another. Take a minute and just listen.
Victor McLaughlin, you're a philosophy graduate. Is happiness something that we should be striving for, do you think?
Yes, it is. It's certainly something everyone should be striving for, but I'd agree with Davy there, the panellist, that I do have a certain scepticism about alternative therapies, but I'd also agree with the lady in the top row there that different courses for different horses, stuff like that. What works for one person might not work for another, but if it works for that person, it has a validity.
Absolutely.
But is there not also an important need to recognise that we should be considering the pursuit of happiness and the science of happiness? Because we've got such a high suicide rate in Northern Ireland that perhaps if we were to look at alternative therapies, not the most outlandish ones which exploit people, but where we actually positively understood that the science of happiness is something that we should consider.
Okay, well, into the final word, guys. What makes you happy? And we'll start with you then, first of all, David.
The real point that we're missing is that it's absolutely normal to be sometimes unhappy and sometimes happy and sometimes in between, but we're setting expectations by this sort of conversation that some people are happy all the time. Why can't I be? No one is happy all the time, neither should they be.
Joanna?
My key for happiness, or my recipe for happiness, is something to do, something to love and something to hope for, and chocolate.
Well, of course, you had to get the chocolate there. Michelle?
Well, I think to look outside of yourself, if you try your best to be unselfish, you can actually gain your happiness from helping other people. That sounds very, very trite, but I mean it. And what makes me happy is if, on occasions, I have been able to help somebody else out of their unhappiness.
And Michael?
Do you know what would make me really happy? Is to see our Davy with a big, massive, cheesy grin. Go on, Davy, now.
You want to have seen me yesterday when Liverpool scored? It was this wide.
Very stereotypical there, isn't it? Football for the men and chocolate for the women to make you happy. Well, that's it for this series of Late and Live. Thanks to my panel, our studio audience, and of course to you at home for your company.
And also a big thanks to you who've texted and emailed throughout the series. We hope you've had the chance to have your say on the issues important to you.
So until next time, thanks for watching Late and Live. From Sarah, from me, and from all of the team here in Belfast, a very good night to you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.